and welcome to Mime Radio. I'm Karen Hoyer.
And I'm James Donlin. We'd also like to introduce our man in the booth, the glue man, the man with the screwdriver, Michael Diaz. There he is. Today, we're going to interview and talk, which I'm really looking forward to Bob Francesconi. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about him before we welcome him in. I've known Bob for decades. He's a master teacher of mime, mask, and clowning. He recently retired after 42 years teaching and directing at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, one of the world's most distinguished drama schools. Before coming to UNCSA, Bob co-founded with myself the celebrated Menagerie Mime Theater, touring and teaching nationally in the early 70s. Over the years, he has been a featured master teacher at many international institutes in faraway places like Russia, Spain, and Singapore. He served on the selection committee for Fulbright and foreign-sponsored scholarship awards, was appointed to the Gerald Friedman Endowed Chair, and has been recognized by the Thomas S. Keenan Institute for his innovative pedagogy in the arts. Bob has nurtured generations and generations of successful professional actors of stage and screen. He is a unique master teacher in every sense of the word. As a team, decades ago, he and I developed our unique core approach to physical theater. I consider Bob one of my greatest teachers. I would not be who I am today without his presence. And with that, let us welcome Bob Francesconi.
Woo! Cheers! A little glass of mime wine to you.
Absolutely.
Salud.
Thank you.
I would like to say that of all those generations of students that count you as their master teacher and mentor, I was one of your first classes in University of North Carolina, which was the North Carolina School of the Arts back then.
School of the Arts, yes.
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 And your influence has been felt all through the years of my career as a performer and teacher also. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Both you and your class were so memorable. I still have images of your exploits.
Well, it's also unusual that a teacher like Bob, a mentor, would stay at an institution for all those years. And I think that's a tribute to his resonance and his mastery of the subject material. You know, when we say a master teacher of mime, clown, and movement, we're really talking about acting. I think, Bob, you'd probably consider yourself an acting teacher, maybe first, and a director besides, but using movement as a way to get at those very elusive aspects of the acting craft.
Yes, that's well put.
Yeah.
I think movement, and since we're talking about mime and clowning to some degree, are essential ingredients in the training of an actor. The development of the imagination and the skills demanded by physical theater in terms of activating actions, objectives, are profound. Those actors who are trained physically really do ignite the stage.
It's true. I always say that the only thing that an actor does 100% of the time is to be present in time and space. Yeah. So the physical theater definitely teaches that magic.
So I have a quick question that we like to start off with. And this is a question for you as a teacher, but also as a performer and a director. When you go on stage, right before you go on stage, whether it's to start a class or to begin to direct a play with a new group of people, or actually doing a performance, what is the thing that you say to yourself right before you go on stage?
Why am I here?
And you would say that teaching a good class is like a performance, wouldn't you? Or would you have other thoughts about that?
It is a performance, but there's also that moment before whether you go on stage or you direct a play, the first rehearsal, uh, walking into a class, the there's a moment that one breathes and just is still, and you kind of wonder, am I enough to uh, do what I'm supposed to do, which is to teach these individuals. And then once, of course, once the class gets moving, uh, you become engaged on a one-to-one basis with the students, and it's a sharing, and it's that moment of sharing, and it's very definite when it occurs. Maybe not in the first few moments, but it gradually people connect to one another. That's why I had such difficulty once the pandemic hit and I was asked to continue teaching movement on the computer. I found it just impossible because I have to, I mean, I need to hear people breathe, literally, and they need to hear me breathe. And I need to feel the warmth of the body in the space. And I assume they want to feel my presence in the space.
Now, was that thought, why am I here? Was that nurtured maybe in 1973 when you and I would take the stage? What are your thoughts on that entrance when you and I would, maybe you could relate that event when we were staring at each other across the stage with the title card in the old classic style of Mime, and we had those thoughts that you remember most likely?
Yeah. We did a performance in a very small theater, if I recall, and I believe there were only about 3 or 4 people.
No, there were more than. This is Berkeley. We were in Berkeley.
Were we in Berkeley?
At Live Oak Theater. Yeah.
There still wasn't very many people there. But,
well, it's Mime. It's Mime, right? So.
And we weren't getting anything from the house. I don't believe. And the lights came up. I was staring in your eyes. You were staring in my eyes. And we kind of sighed, if I recall, or and that thought, yes.
Yeah.
Are we here?
Why am I here? It's a great question.
The other thing that I wanted to say in terms of your teaching, when you say, why am I here? It's like, it pulls yourself together. It's like, okay, this is the reason I've arrived to do this thing. But the other thing that you said is this sort of, am I going to be enough? And to me, that's an extraordinary type of teacher, because there are teachers that have such big egos that they think they are the ultimate teacher. And both you, Bob, and James, you have this ability to put the student first, and it's not about your own ego, it's about nurturing the student, which I find invaluable in teaching.
Yeah.
I've always felt that one does not tell a student what to do, but you lead a student to discovery. And I know, especially when I'm directing a play, if I tell an actor exactly what I want, 3 out of 4 times they cannot accomplish it because it's not, I'm not activating their organic impulses. And I feel strongly that one learns through personal discovery and giving a student the freedom to explore, but guide to a goal. You can't just be free form with things. And that's what technique is all about. You're leading a student to accept technique, and then that student goes on and when I say, am I enough that's to instill that sense of discovery in the student, because each student is different.
Yeah, I always thought that when I went to a class that I was going to be educated myself. I was always very curious and excited about what inspiration I would receive from the students. My motto is, you're only as good a teacher as how good your students are, in a
Exactly.
sense, you know? Who, like, going a little further with the character of the students, like, or the audience, who are those people? Like, let maybe talk about the student, like, who are they in your mind? Are they children? Are they, I mean, not literally children? Are they young fawns? Are they a restless devils? I mean, what are they, angels that need to be tamed and released? Who are those people?
In the early years, and usually before I walk in to a studio, I see a lot of puppies.
Wow. And that's so interesting after that process, how after 3 or 4 years of training, that you can really feel a difference, can't you?
Oh yeah. And the evolution that occurs, which is so enjoyable, is that the students become equals, and then the students become teachers of me. Actually, I think you said.
Do you feel that you must? Is there a certain station, teacher and student? Is there always a line that must be drawn in terms of, camaraderie, or how do you look at that division between student and master teacher? There's many people have different viewpoints on that, and some people delve into all kinds of dynamics in that sense. What is it to you that is there a definition? Is there a frontier between the two that changes but maybe remains the same? What do you think?
I don't feel that I should be personally involved with a student. Now, let me explain that. I'm not interested in an individual's private life. I am only interested in the work. And I think my boundary is that I have to, and the student has to, bond together to work the process. And in this case, the process of acting or movement. I don't like psychological games, and I feel that there's a privacy that must be maintained. Professionalism, I call it professionalism. This the student in the class must be respected, and they have a privacy and a secret place within themselves that probably I have no business being in. And the same thing with me. I don't feel I want people to really know me or my faults or what I do good. There's a sense of mystery there.
Yeah, it's interesting that physical theater itself reveals the psychology without resorting to games. Like a lot of acting classes in the conventional sense have these psychological games and so forth. But I feel the study of physical theater, your psychology, and the teacher too, is revealed naturally through the process. So you don't have to push it. You don't have to do conniving and interesting gymnastics to find the sense of mind and body.
No, and those mind games that you're talking about can be so detrimental to an individual's growth, and can psychologically scar a student. I might say it a little bit later, but since you mentioned about revealing, to me, one of the prime uses of the mask is that it reveals the true sense of who the person underneath the mask is.
Right.
And if that person is covered up by a personal mask, meaning they can't let go and be innocent in the space, the mask does not come alive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so obvious when a person is covering themselves up and protecting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially obvious in a mask because the mask goes dead.
Well, that's one of the purposes of having a good movement curriculum in an acting program is that
Right.
it goes deeper than the acting classes very often. And it's.
I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about teaching and now about masks, about how did you get started? What training did you have, and what, course of your life, things that happened to you that brought you to this point, and how did you discover masks as this great teaching tool?
And also tell us about Humboldt County.
Yes.
Well, that's where it happened. I think James, I don't think either of us were really taught. I do feel that our system of what we do was developed by ourselves.
We were released. Maybe that's the better word. The hounds were released. The door was open for us, maybe.
Yeah. The nature of Humboldt State, where we went to school, it was very much a place where a student could explore and do. There were numerous self-generated projects in the school, and there was a kind of rebellious quality about the drama program. One of our favorite teachers is Philip Mann, and I remember I had transferred to Humboldt State, and I had to take a theater appreciation course. And I walked into this little Quonset hut. It was all decorated with rugs and all of that. And I was fascinated because I had just transferred from Loyola University engineering program. And we were asked to wear tights. I remember the shock I had with that. But the charisma of Philip Mann, and really the first acting teacher that I had was so infectious. But he dared to explore. And then Philip Rothrock dared, chair of the department and a longtime teacher there, also allowed students to explore. Then we got
they brought us close to the times and close to life.
Yeah.
Tell us about your, for those of you who don't know, Humboldt State is located in Arcata, California on the North Coast, the historical, beautiful North Coast of California with its virgin redwood forests, the fog and the mist and the rivers. It's where Del Arte International is located in Blue Lake. Tell us how the nature of that area influenced you, even before you were training to be an actor or entered drama.
I mean, I was heavily influenced by the Lost Coast, they call it, and heavily influenced by the redwoods, the power and majesty of the redwoods, and the power and ruggedness of the ocean in the at the North Coast. Northern California is completely different than Southern California. It's a very rocky coast. Water's very cold, and it's absolutely breathtaking.
It's a world of movement and forms, which if you're interested in physical theater, I think it seeps those that sense of movement and the primal forces of nature. It's just seep into your body naturally. Yeah.
The other thing in retrospect that I find so intriguing about my early years there is what I realized as a young kid. Actually, you walk into a redwood forest and it's silent. The tower, if you trees 300 feet tall, but the nature of a redwood forest is that there are no birds, and that because the bark has a substance in it that there are no insects. Now, of course, the mossy floor of redwood forest is a little different, but there's a stillness about it, and especially when the fog comes in, you can hear every distant sound, usually a foghorn, but you don't hear anything in the woods themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember you can walk in those woods for, for a long time, hearing the seacoast, and you don't feel you're getting any closer. But you can hear the waves echoing through the majesty of the trees, and you're like, where is that coast? Where is that coast? And you keep walking and walking.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that environment influenced both Bob and I.
But Bob, did you grow up in that area? And
Yeah.
and also as a kid, did you have any interest in performing?
I had a lot of interest in playing sports. I was always attracted, for some reason, to the arts, and especially to acting. But I don't know why, because there's no one in my family even remotely connected, or then I do come from a family of people that are good with their hands.
Bob's Italian, growing up in an Italian family, and I think that's theatrical in itself, having been around his family in my life. Father Leo was quite a force of nature, let me say.
Yeah. My dad at age 70, or the age I am now, I guess, I'm a little older than 70, but he built an airplane and flew it. That's the kind of guy he was. My grandfather on my dad's side was a lumberjack originally. He came over from Italy, worked his way across country, ended up in Scotia, California, where the largest redwood company in the world was located at the time. And he sawed down redwood trees by hand.
Those big bucking saws, like would go back and forth.
Wow.
There's a picture of him and his partners standing in the cut of the undercut of a redwood tree that is 300 feet high, and took days to saw these down. My other grandfather was a bootlegger, quite literally, in California, and he wasn't mafia, but people that came, they called it the old country, didn't know the ways of prohibition. It just didn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
That grandfather landed in New York at the age of 13, and he also worked his way across country, ended up with relatives in the Bay Area, and that's where my roots eventually ended up, is in San Francisco, and then finally further north. Both grandmothers didn't know the husbands they came to wed when they came to this country.
Like mail order brides.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So there is a sense of commedia and art that's naturally in the family. How do you define your art now? like what you do, what you've done for the last 50 years, how would you define that? And maybe how that's changed over the years?
Yeah, I have a very specific instance where I got attracted. I was at Loyola University, and the drama club was doing a production of Servant of Two Masters, the Goldoni play. I I went. I just don't know why I went. And this was the very first time I saw masks on stage. And they did the Goldoni play in Commedia Masks. I saw every performance of it. I was so intrigued, but that's as far as it went there. And then eventually, I went to Loyola because I was interested in flight training, and they had a flight training program there. And
Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah,
you're the original.
And I did engineering, and I wasn't very good at math, so that kind of canceled that out. I was just unhappy in Los Angeles. I just hated it. It was just me. I wasn't used to that environment, and I transferred back to Humboldt. And as I told you, Phil Mann, we intrigued me. I met Mr. Donlin there.
Yeah.
He intrigued me, and we both were accepted into a special summer program workshop class by Yas Hakashima. And I believe we had to audition for it. Jim, were you accepted the first time?
No, I was rejected.
That's what I thought.
Just like Michael Jordan was rejected, was cut from his high school basketball team. Right?
Yeah. And then we took the summer program, and from that point on, we started working together and started developing a sense of the physical. One of the things that...
But how would you define it? How would you, like, if you could say to someone in the airplane seat next to you what you do, and they asked you, tell me more about that, what would you say to them in terms of framing the concept of what you've devoted your life to?
I've tried. I literally have tried.
Tried to describe it, or just yeah.
Explain it or describe it, and finally I don't. I just don't.
How far do you get? How far in that conversation do you get? What do you leave them with?
Sometimes I think they think I'm silly.
So I'm gathering that maybe it's not that important to you that they really understand. Is it something more sacred for you, or you know what I mean? It's more private, more.
That's a wise thing, and that's what you said. It is private. I can't explain it. Just like in the one of the things I really took away from that influenced me, I didn't know it at the time, truthfully, was the Eastern influence on my thought process. And I mean the Japanese outlook on art. And it's a slow awareness that is becoming more apparent to me now than ever before. But one of the things that characterized our early work in terms of physical theater is that there was a uniqueness about it. And it wasn't about demonstrating technique or demonstrating a story. It was releasing an inner life. I don't know what else to say. The the this the spirit of the Japanese is, and I'm simplifying here, is captured in haiku poetry,
Mhm.
and it's that sense of passion, internal passion, that manifests itself in imagery, uh, and specific imagery that that is specific and very, very stripped down.
But yet the laws of nature are very apparent in terms of
Yeah,
form and cause and effect, and um,
and there's a certain, even on a lot of the things that you and I have done together, there's that sense of nature in it.
mm,
Uh, the One of the most interesting experiences that we've had was, I don't know if you remember doing when the California state system was shut down by the students during the Vietnam War,
yeah.
and we performed as part of the protests in the cafeteria at Humboldt State.
I had forgotten that. I keep talking to my students about how the times informed my approach
Yeah,
to theater and the social cultural connections, but I had totally forgotten about that. But you're right. Yeah.
and one of the things that we did was the game.
Yeah.
About two brothers who ended up in killing one another. It was a discussion of war, truthfully, and uh, all of that was brought back to me this past couple of years. Black Lives Matter, et cetera, and just the state of where we are now. And it's interesting that in the nature of my classes shifted also.
Mm.
Not about the unrest, but how comedy and art can make individuals aware of what is going on. If no one understands what I'm talking about, think about the Marx Brothers and the how much fun they poked at government.
Yes.
It's that kind of thing. And I assume that clowning and comedy has a great deal of irreverence about it in terms of established norms.
Right. Like the gesture laughing at the king, or in the work that I do in the hospitals, which is we impersonate doctors who are know-it-alls, but we're inept. And so we're able to get at the system by making fun of the system.
Exactly. I always go back to King Lear and the Fool of Lear. And the Fool is exactly what you just said. The other piece of work that I'm heavily influenced by, and it's really a style of work, is the work of Samuel Beckett. And the work, and specifically the play Waiting for Godot. Every time I use it, or something new comes out of it. And I used it heavily last year before the School of the Arts was closed down because of the pandemic. We were really beginning to pursue the nature of not Waiting for Godot as such, but the dynamics of those people. But it's not just it's prevalent everywhere in comedy.
Bob, you're getting very excited. You're pounding the table and your camera's shaking a little bit.
I'm sorry.
I can hear your desk rattling. What about, okay, so over these years, how has your body changed? Or how is, we're physical, all three of us are physical theater artists. What What challenges have you had over the years with your ability to impart the knowledge we've been talking about? What can you give any advice of how to avoid age, or is age unavoidable? And what do you do about that?
Well, I think age is desirable.
Ah.
That's
I
a great
do.
point. That's a great point.
Great
Uh,
attitude.
Yeah.
Because I know you asked me about physically, but I have kept records of each class I taught for well over 45 years.
Yeah.
And I highlight the exercises that I do after each class. I don't critique them, but I highlight what they did because everything is improv. If I didn't write it down, I couldn't build on anything.
Wow, we're so similar, Bob, in our teaching.
Yeah.
Like I've done the same thing over the years. Yeah.
And to watch the evolution on paper is enlightening. But the evolution is not only the biggest evolution is up here. That is what is different. And I feel that there's a perspective that grows about the nature of art and how to explore art that I didn't have when I first started, and I kind of wonder why they didn't fire me then. I was full of energy, but I didn't understand why. And I'm not saying I understand it now, but I have a greater handle on it. And so physically, yeah, actually, yeah, as you age, you get a little stiffer. I was able to acquire 2 artificial hips, which helped a great deal. But it's about transforming. It's not about demonstrating. And I think, although I don't perform, but possibly in the studio as a teacher, you transform. I do that better now because I understand what silence is.
Yeah, I've always felt that as I get older, you can't disguise the aging. You have to use it. You have to embrace it and also understand how new knowledge has come.
Yeah.
That could only come when you're at 70 or 80 years old. And that's so valuable and rich. But you can't deny the age because the age is part of that release of the knowledge. And that's where we are.
Right.
It's that honesty again.
I think it's time for a gift.
Bob, you have a packet? Are you ready to open your packet?
Whoa, let's check it out. Who's it from, Bob?
It is from Mime Radio Podcast.
Oh, that's us.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who sent it to you? Is there a name on there?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's all it
Michael,
says.
we can't control Michael. He just sends out these things from his.
I just got so excited you were joining us, Bob.
But it comes from Chicago, so that
I don't know how that happened.
I
and the
forwarded it.
handwriting is really clear to read.
Okay.
Open it for us.
There are directions.
Oh.
It says chair here.
I hope you like it.
You have a new friend, Bob.
I see that. I was shocked when I saw it. Just about.
Yeah, I have.
Be careful, it's fragile.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
What's the weight of it?
It's like a relic, I think.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. From the past.
Very light.
Yeah, just tear that thing open. We have, uh-oh.
Yep. But be careful, it's fragile. So, Bob, I hope you like this. This is the actual bottle of champagne that you and James toasted each other with after your first paid performance.
Oh, it really was good, that champagne. Let me see. There's still a little bit left in here.
There it is.
There it is. Yes. Is there a glass there too? Should we fill up our glasses?
There is.
Pour it over the top of the screen. It'll come right into our glasses. Hold your glass up higher, Karen. Yeah, good. All right, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. We're so happy you were here. What did we get paid? $200 for our first performance?
Yeah.
In the headlights at Sacramento City College or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's not bad these days.
Now, Mike, didn't that come from the museum?
Oh, yes. The museum, the Mime Museum of Historical Mimetic Artifacts.
Michael, you're such a great collector. He's such a great collector. So
he's the curator, and so we're sharing some of these artifacts with our guests. So
yeah, now we have one less.
Yes.
For the Mime Museum, but you know, it's worthwhile.
You're deacquisitioning your collection. So, Bob, now you are the proud owner of an imaginary bottle of champagne that you and Molly can toast each other whenever you like.
Thank you. We will use it tonight.
So, Bob,
yeah.
Speaking about Sacramento City College and places you and I may have been, do you remember any disaster stories we might have experienced during our travels in the yellow Mustang? Oh, he's chuckling.
Was it Brigham Young or was it?
Oh, tell us that one about Brigham. Are you talking about the fight in the light booth?
Oh, no, I don't want to talk about it. It's just that we got to Brigham Young. They didn't have anything prepared, nor did they have a light plot set. And they gave us someone, if I recall, that didn't know how to run the lights. And I ended up in the light booth for some reason and started programming the board. I started, I think, throwing things. I don't know. It was an old-fashioned board, really, and it had plastic panels that you manipulated by hand, and then you stuck them into
I remember we encountered some of those in Marysville that were warped.
Yeah.
But this Brigham Young event, tell us more what happened there.
I don't think I remember anymore.
Well, the guy took a swing at you, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
He got offended. When we said we need to do a tech rehearsal for the next evening's performance, he got offended. And
yeah, because we had said everything.
Yeah.
And we weren't satisfied. I forgot about the swing.
But, that's one of the advantages of the Humboldt State training is that both Bob and I were very knowledgeable about lighting. And sometimes we'd actually tire ourselves out by doing the hanging lights and setting cues right up to 5 minutes before the show.
Yeah.
We were obsessed with detail, I would say, at times, right?
Yeah.
That's like one of the problems with touring is you never know what they're going to be able to do, and you never know what you're going to expect. So you have to be able to either change it or cope with whatever they have available.
Exactly.
I can remember being stopped. We had a tour and we were driving on 101 South through the Redwoods in the yellow Mustang. And we were stopped by a CHP for speeding. And we both had kind of blue turtlenecks on. And you remember he said, "Are you guys in the Navy?" And we said, yeah, we're on leave. And he says, "All right, great. Just take it easy, man. We'll see you guys." And he let us go on. Do you remember it was somewhere down near Redway or?
I forgot that completely. It's coming back.
Yeah. And you had your beard and everything. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
I have a question about the shows that you're talking about. When you went out on tour with Menagerie Mime, was your show like a series of vignettes with, like you were talking about, the title cards, like sort of the classic short pieces? Were they solos? Were they always duets? What were your shows like?
Well, they were at that time very traditional, meaning a series of vignettes. Uh, uh, they're most of the pieces were in pairs, and Jim had two marvelous solos. One called Tin Can. What was the other one?
Pills.
Pills, yeah, yeah.
Which I've done elements of those, or I've actually done Tin Cans in its entirety just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, and talk about Fish, because James has told me that both of you would do Fish as a
originally, yeah,
as a sort of like a warm-ups even. Like
well,
process.
Fish became kind of one of our classic. It was the struggle between a man and a big fish, a marlin in my mind. It was really evolved in my mind. I don't know if we ever really talked about it, but from the Hemingway piece, Old Man in the Sea. And
which we should do sometime, Bob. We should do a movement version of Old Man in the Sea, because we're the right age. One of us could direct, maybe, or both be in it. Maybe there's moving parts to it, but it would be an interesting culmination of that chrysalis of Fish in the beginning, and then now we come to, because it was influenced by that. Yeah.
And the thing about Fish was the mime technique of the rope being stretched across the stage, and then the tug of war with that. But again, it wasn't about the technique, but it was about the death of the fish.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing that distinguished the work was, the style was traditional in our sense, but even though we had different approaches, but to certain details, but the material is what separated us from the conventional. I thought we were always being complimented by the material, which came out of those times, those 60s, those restless cultural, social times.
And the classic one is Looking Glass.
Yeah, right.
Which I believe always started the show.
Yeah, it was always the opening number.
The opening number, and I believe Game was the closing, but I'm not
close to the closing, if not the closing, right?
Yeah, the Looking Glass piece is about. It starts very comically with a figure in front of the looking glass. The figure in front of the looking glass was Jim, and then the reflection behind the looking glass was me, and we copied each other's movement. But at one point in Twilight Zone kind of thing, the image in the glass began to have its own mind, and eventually sucked the figure in front of the glass into the mirror. And the last image of them is the reflection, and the reflection, and the person walking off into darkness, into the infinity.
And unfortunately, a lot of that work has been lost because there was no video at that time.
No.
Bob and I made one video, reel to reel, that was very interesting, but it has been lost. And so many of these original pieces would never be able to be archived today, So, but I think, the creative process, like, I don't know what you're working on now, but when you start a piece, or we started a piece, like maybe talk about now, like when you start creating something? I know you do a lot of directing with scripts that have already been written, but what's your first doorway that you open when you start a creative process?
I'm going to tell you what's in my mind. I don't know if I really follow it, but the first thing that I always think about is in the process, it's like an onion. And what you do, you have an onion, but then you begin to peel away layers. And the peeling of the layers is the approach to specificity of the moment. And no matter what the process is, you have to continue to find the heart of what you're doing, the breadth of what you're doing. It's all the same thing. The other, a part of that has to be patience. You're not going to get it right away. I always wanted things done right away. I still do, but but one has to be patient and allow the project to evolve organically. You can't push it. So I
and it changes every day. Sometimes you can't. You have to know that it may change. Yeah,
it changes every day, but the changes are based on what happened before.
Yeah,
that's the understanding.
That's interesting. Yeah,
and you know, sometimes when I direct a play, we'll do a beautiful scene, and I'll say, "That's it." Sorry, Jim, I hit the desk again. and the next day, the people come in, and it's completely different. And they said, "Well, I changed it." I said, "Why?"
Yeah.
Now, if you tell me we evolved it, I'll take it, and we'll work together to see where it's evolved. But one can't be arbitrary in the creative process.
That's the key, isn't it? Because one of my tests for students is, can you repeat tomorrow what you did today, but with the evolution that you're talking about, but yet the same core is there. Yeah. And it's difficult for students to do that without learning a process that they adhere to. But that's a very, very important thing you said, is how there's the core of that process, which must remain, but yet there's an evolution. That's a great way to describe that.
I think when I think about when I'm about to create a new piece and I look back, well, how did I do it last time? And I can't really understand how I did it last time, but I can look back and I can say this led to this and this evolved, but I can't repeat that for the next piece. And it's like this beginning of understanding that with each piece you start at the beginning and you have to let it evolve, because you can't repeat what you did with the last
Exactly.
Yeah, I've always felt through time, like I still do a solo of Fish, but I've always felt through time not to stay glued to what was before, that you must listen to the present and how it informs that core and how it evolves. You know, it has to evolve because you evolve as an artist, you know.
You have to be in, another way of saying what you just said, you have to be in the moment. And if you're not in the moment, you are demonstrating and not living it.
Do you can you show us some masks? I know that's an important part of your creative process. Can you do you have any masks there you could?
Yeah, we'd like to really see a little bit about your mask work.
You know, what goes into that? What's the importance of mask work? In a short little discussion.
I have a question to start out with, because before you start with the students on working with masks, they have to have some sort of beginning movement. How do you get your students, brand new group of students, to get up and start moving? And how does abstract and concrete movement fit into that? And then how does that lead into the masks?
That what you just said is the essential part of the mask training.
Yeah.
And it's essential part of the actor training. I play games.
Yeah.
Throw balls around. We play tag. Not nothing to do with art as such.
Yeah, that's one thing about athletic endeavors or balls is that they do what they do.
Yeah,
You can't hide what they do. You have to master what they do or go with what they do. That's
yeah.
that pure cause and effect that you
See,
find in athletic
in
processes.
the throwing of a ball, you're totally in the moment. If not, you're going to get hit in the face with it. You have to catch it. But there's a sense of release that happens in game playing. Vigorous game playing, tag. It never fails.
So you play games with the masks after they've been introduced. There's a game structure that you put the mask work into.
Well, it depends. It all depends. To me, there is that sense of release usually through game playing, and people have fun and they begin to work up a sweat. The second part of that is a warm up of some type.
Yeah.
I tend to duplicate the warm up always for a sense of regiment, almost like a drill sergeant in a way, because the mind releases with that. And then from that is an evolution into the improvisation, whether it be verbal improvisation or movement improvisation. I find movement improvisation infinitely more valuable than verbal improvisation, although you can combine both. In the movement improvisation, we endeavor to get rid of this. So you're not thinking. You'll hear me say, don't think, don't think, don't think.
Yes.
Well, I quit even saying that. I now have become very silent in my classes where I do everything by gesture, whistles,
Nice.
finger snaps, especially in the movement classes, so as not to get people to orchestrate what they're doing.
Great. Show us a mask. Show us a
Okay.
mask.
Yes.
Well, one you're familiar with. Can you see this? I can't tell.
Oh,
Yes, the hood.
The basic, yes.
Yeah.
I start with this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know where it came exactly. I know why it came about. We didn't have masks at one time. Also, traditionally, this black face hood was worn in performance underneath a mask, so as to hide the head. But it has developed over the years as an essential part of the mask training. It starts very abstract with abstract movement in the space, images, and all of that. Gradually, and you can't help this, especially if you're working with actors, gradually it begins to take on a character.
Mm-hmm.
And the character becomes more animated, sometimes silly, sometimes strange. And before you know it, you have the Blue Men.
Yeah.
The Blue Man Group. Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, that's what this becomes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's no secret that the School of the Arts has graduated many Blue Men.
Yeah.
6 or 7.
Show us the character mask.
Okay.
That's the next step.
I was just going to say about the hoods, the neutrality. To me, they're so magical in any level of people that I have taught that have put on a hood. Instantly, both the performer becomes more expressive in their whole body, and the audience, the other students really can see that that's happening. So it's like both sides are really learning a lot just because they put on the hood and we no longer see the face, we see the body.
Yeah.
Because the hood is dependent on the observer to give it life. It really is. The second, I traditionally do a different sequence of masks than is done traditionally. So I'll go through the sequence of the mask, and I'll show you the masks actually. I start with the black face hood. The second mask that I use, which is different from traditional mask training, is what I call a full face character mask. Whoops. Can you see this on the screen? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is a full face character mask. It's larger than life, and it's designed, truthfully, to allow the actor to activate physical impulses.
And
It
you
does-
made all these masks yourself. You designed and created
Yeah.
these.
Can you turn it a little bit? Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so beautiful.
What's it inside? What's it look like inside? Can you turn it around to the back?
Can you see
Yeah.
that?
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
made?
that-
What's that made out of? That one, Bob.
This one is made out of celastic, something.
So
you
that's
can't-
an older mask that you, one of your originals.
This is the original.
Yeah.
Well over 45 years old.
Right.
Wow.
And I
It's
have
interesting. I have a mask that is probably the template for one of my most popular masks. Is probably based on Bob's template. I have a big
Yeah.
mask with a big grin that
You're right,
everybody
right.
loves. You know, like
I have to rebuild the masks after each semester of using them. Otherwise, they deteriorate. Now, I have a whole series of these. They were molded on a base of river rocks of various sizes,
nice.
upon which I do a clay face on. So all of the masks are different, and none of them fit the human face. That's important
Right.
because it forces you to animate. This particular mask, you look out the nose.
Yeah, it's not like it's pulling you into another place rather than
Yeah.
trying to, instead of the mask trying to accommodate, or the mask, you're trying to make that mask become part of you. You're trying to become part of the mask in a sense.
Right.
It's stretching you, right?
And Jacques Lecoq has a series of larval masks, which are similar but more abstract, actually. So there's a whole series of these. All of them are quite different. There's also another series of that same mask, but very realistic.
Mhm.
These were built to allow greater human exploration, but silliness of
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
and somewhat traditional.
How many masks do you have you built over the years?
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still have the energy to build masks, or you
No.
haven't enough?
No, there's no
personalities?
reason to now.
Yeah, you have enough personalities. Yeah.
Yeah, I got enough. And this is an abstract version of the mask I just of the character movement mask.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the second mask that we use.
Right.
The third mask, which is usually the first mask that is used in a mask sequence, is the neutral universal mask. Mine are not the traditional neutral universal mask. The first series I built are quite human,
Mm-hmm.
but they have no mouth.
Is that celastic too, or is that a newer material?
This is plastic.
Yeah.
Ah.
But you formed that, you crafted that yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but because I work in a school that has an advanced design and production department, they vacuum form the forms for me.
Wow.
So this is a plastic mask coated in the back with felt.
Do you ever use masks that the students design themselves, or do you never get that far? Or is that a separate?
That's a separate
study?
thing.
Right.
I tried once and it was a waste of my time because people have to learn how to mold.
Mm.
So that's a whole separate thing. You could do that. It would be fun, but
How are those neutral masks used differently than the character masks?
let me explain. This will explain a little more here.
Yeah, I noticed there's no mouth on this mask.
This is a more abstract version of what I just showed you. I have moved more to these now. The neutral mask is a mask that deals with high stakes. and it's a mask that deals with the subtext of the actor. So, and it deals with realistic situations, but the key is not to act silly in them, which you can do. The character mask is a physical mask.
Mhm.
And
So you're saying the prior mask is more introspective in terms of psychology?
This one is not introspective.
Right, that's what I'm
as such.
saying. That-
Yeah. Although the more you use it, it moves towards Chaplin
Mhm.
and that dynamic.
Do you finish with a half mask at all, or do you
Yeah,
never?
yeah, that's coming.
Yeah.
The neutral mask. The neutral mask is what Jim said, introspective, or probes the psychology of the actor in the moment.
Right.
And then the third mask that we use, excuse me, the third mask that we use is the character half mask. Can you see this one?
Yeah.
So you move from pure silence of the black face hood to finally 2 years down the line or a year and a half down the line to a mask that begins to speak. This one is a very strong character mask, somewhat commedia in nature.
Mhm.
Here's another of a character half mask,
Mhm.
less featured. I also use the half mask more in a neutral manner, but
Mhm.
more realistic in terms of its movement.
Mhm. What's
And-
in terms of your style of creation or the design of the mask, do you feel that they're childlike or primitive? How would you describe them? Or refined, or a piece of art on the wall? Where do these masks fit in the spectrum of aesthetic by choice to get at what you want from the education of it?
I don't feel that a mask should be decorative.
Right.
For in training modes. I could put eyebrows on this.
Mm.
You notice they're flat in terms of their painting.
Yeah, I see no shade, like shadows or
none
shading.
None of that. If this were in performance, in fact, this has happened to this mask, we would put shading in and all of that.
Yeah.
But for training purposes, you don't want to make the actor imitate the face of the mask.
Mm.
You want the body of the actor to assimilate the mask.
Uh-huh.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So you don't need decoration. Just like if you can all see Jim over there in black leotards and tights on the wall, you don't need costume either.
Right.
All of these masks up to this point are done just in leotards and tights or tight-fitting dark clothing. We costume is for performance, and then of course we would.
It's getting hot in here. Oh.
Oh no! Oh no!
What's that? Oh, it's that time.
Protect
It's
your mask.
rapid fire time.
Oh.
It's rapid fire time.
Woo!
So thank you, Michael. You look fantastic.
Like that mask.
I think Bob probably has a mask similar to that in his collection. What about the eyes of a mask? What's your quick philosophy on like Balinese masks have eyes? Most of the masks that we use do not. Do you have a philosophy on that in a sentence?
The human eyes need to be visible through the mask.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? You mean like a half mask? We need to see my eyes, or the black holes of?
No, you need to see your eyes.
Okay. What
Now,
if we don't
it,
see your eyes?
then it becomes external.
Yeah.
You don't see the eyes in this.
Or I would say that, but you must generate the energy of the eyes.
Yeah.
Intangibly. But that's another discussion.
Yeah.
That's similar to poetry, actually. All right, rapid fire. Rapid fire is when I'm going to rapid fire words at you.
Oh,
And you're going to respond with one word reaction as quickly as you can. And if you go, that's okay. You could go, and I'll move on to the next. Okay. Are you ready?
I think so.
You're probably thinking, why am I here right now?
That thought occurred.
Okay, so we're going to go through a string of them here, and you're just going to give me the first thing off the top of your head. This is an improvisation process, right? Just imagine you and I on stage again. Okay, here we go. Ready? Feet.
Smell.
Arms.
Stuck.
Stuck. All right. Spotlight.
Hot.
Stage.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Hands.
Pardon?
Hands. Hands.
Wonder.
Nice. Eyes.
Silence.
Fourth wall.
Broken.
Sweat.
Good.
Child.
Innocence.
Elder.
Wise.
Costume.
Useless.
Props.
Useless.
8 p.m.
Dinner.
Remember Magic Time? Remember that tour we were on and it was 8 p.m. and we were ready to go on stage and the guy who was our sponsor said, Magic Time is here.
Yeah, I love that.
Mask.
Silence.
Red nose.
Innocence.
Age.
Apex.
Failure.
Apex.
Critic.
Uh-oh.
Teacher.
Me.
Fame.
Useless.
Language.
Necessary.
Clown. I thought you were going to say useless again. Clown.
I wanted to say useless again.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's your answer. I wanted to say useless. Clown.
Red.
Mime. Careful.
That's his answer, James.
Oh, I see that. I got a thick head. Future.
Cloudy.
Past.
Interesting.
Now.
Sigh.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was rapid fire. I need a drink.
Cheers. So, Bob, in all of your travels, can you think of like your favorite place that in the world that your work has taken you?
Or most interesting. Yeah. Don't say you're bad.
No. I was going to say Russia, actually.
Mm.
Just before we left Moscow, we were taken to, well, we weren't told where we were going to be taken. One of the leading actors of the Moscow Art Theater, Oleg Tobakov, said, I'm going to pick you up. And he did, and he's going to take us, but he wouldn't tell us where he was going to take us. And he gave us, or gave Molly some roses to hold for him. And we went to the Moscow cemetery, which stretched for miles. And we got out And I noticed, and I didn't understand exactly, there was a fence down the middle of it. On one side of the fence were all these marble statues.
Mhm.
On the other side was much more peasant. But again, we didn't quite understand why that was there. We went to the side with the marble statues, and he took us to the statue and grave of Khrushchev, who he said started democracy, the new democracy uh, in Russia. If you recall, the Berlin Wall was about to come down.
Mhm.
And of course, we didn't speak about it, but all of Moscow was aware that a change was coming there. At Khrushchev's grave, we were asked to put a rose down, and we know Khrushchev from him at the United Nations pounding his shoe on the desk, telling the world, "We will bury you." So Kennedy and Khrushchev, Kennedy and the missile crisis, et cetera. You see how I'm kind of of my time there. We left Khrushchev's grave and we went to the other side. And then he said, "This is where the artists are buried." One side politician, the other artist. And we walked among the graves, and we went to a grave. So I'm still moved by it. Well, we went to a grave with a cherry tree over it.
Oh my God.
And it was Chekhov's grave. And we put a rose down there.
Wow.
And then we went a little further on, and we put a rose down to his teacher, his grave.
Speaking of tombstones and all these things, what's your legacy going to be?
I don't know. Quite seriously, I don't know. I don't think we will know that until we're not here anymore.
So it doesn't concern you?
No. No, it really doesn't.
What advice would you give to young artists?
They have to find their own way.
That's a legacy in a way.
Yeah.
They have to find their own way.
Well, I mean, they have to take responsibility and discover a way of working. Part of my responsibility is present the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
He was a man who presented a challenge.
But I think in terms of legacy, because you've had so many students, your legacy has already started because those people have gone out and done whatever. Just one last question for you, and that's has to do with all those many, many students that you've had. Some of them have gone on to become actors or stayed in the performing life, but many of them probably didn't. What do you think that what you offered as a teacher in terms of learning to move, learning to be present, using the mask, what does the mask teach them that they can apply to whatever they do with their lives?
Very few of the students that have graduated from the school have gone on in traditional acting careers. Now, there are a lot of teachers, there are a lot of lawyers. Strangely enough, there are a lot of doctors. Just training, the discipline of the actor training, the long hours one must spend, and assimilating a way of working.
It's discovery and the unknown and the discipline involved to stay in the discovery. Those are
exactly.
the most valuable lessons, aren't they?
Yeah. And it's unimportant to me and truthfully to the School of Drama. If we're not there to train actors. It'd be nice because we are a school of drama, but we're really there to be to have people discover themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And in this day and age, that discovery has really expanded because it's the society is redefining the individual.
Mm-hmm.
But if I understand completely, an individual now has greater freedom to be oneself. And I can't understand all of it because I'm not a part of it anymore.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Me?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be a clown.
That's beautiful.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mime Radio Show. Join us in 2 weeks for a conversation with Joan Shirley.